Happy Monday, Chiefs Kingdom. Harrison Graham here. Coming up on today's show, Kansas City Chiefs free agent targets after the 2023 NFL Draft. It was a busy 3 days in Kansas City. If you got to go, that's pretty cool. Let me know if you did down in the comments section. But we'll take a look at some players KC could now add now that the draft is in the books. But first, let's kind of recap the Chiefs selections here. They, of course, took the local kid, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, in the first round with that number 31 pick, the edge out of Kansas State. SMU wide receiver Rashee Rice in a trade-up in round 2. They also traded up for Oklahoma offensive tackle Wanya Morris in the 3rd round. Traded up again for Shamari Connor, the safety out of Virginia Tech. And then some more day 3 picks here. B.J. Thompson, edge out of Stephen F. Austin, transferred from Baylor. Keandre Coburn, the defensive tackle out of Texas. And then wrapping things up, Nick Jones, the Ball State cornerback. So now that the draft is in the books, what is the Chiefs' biggest need following the NFL Draft? What position? Obviously, the Chiefs don't have any major needs at this point on their roster, but if you had to pick one position, what do you think the biggest need is? I would say you can never have enough pass rushers, so adding another edge could be in the cards. How about Yannick Ngakoue, the edge who played for the Indianapolis Colts last year? He's had a really consistent career in terms of sack production, with at least 8 sacks in all 7 years of his NFL career. Had 9.5 last year for Indianapolis, had 10 the year before with the Raiders in the AFC West. So he's got familiarity with this division. He's not a great run stopper, but when you look at this defensive line, you've got a little bit of depth now all of a sudden. So Ngakoue could be a guy that you just bring over to kind of be a pass rusher, right? Just rotate in, rush the passer. I don't think he'd necessarily start, but then you could go Karlaftis, Amenahue, Anudike-Uzomah, Ngakoue, Michael Dana. That's a pretty good rotation coming off the edge. See what B.J. Thompson does as a rookie. See if Joshua Kendo gets in the mix. But you have some quality depth, but adding a guy that just purely can go get the quarterback, I think that's always a good thing. How about Jerick McKinnon? A lot of buzz around bringing back the running back right now. Brett Veach on Monday kind of hinting toward that. Here's Ian Rapoport tweeting out that the Chiefs are expected to re-sign Jerick McKinnon, whose reemergence has been a revelation to Kansas City. He gained 803 yards from scrimmage last year, the 2nd highest total in his career, with 10 touchdowns. Brett Veach alluded to this possibility with reporters just now. That was just a couple of hours ago. And Rapoport mentioned the 803 yards. You look at what he was able to put together here with those 803 yards, 512 of them receiving. Still gives you just enough in terms of running the football where you can hand the ball off to him a few times a game as well. His December and January to finish up the regular season, he was terrific. I mean, Jerick McKinnon was a game changer. He won AFC Offensive Player of the Month for December and January heading into the playoffs, so that was pretty impressive for him. And looking at this depth chart, considering the Chiefs did not draft a running back, you've got Isiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire still in the mix, but I like Deneric Prince, by the way, undrafted free agent. I think he's got a shot to make the roster, but I just look at this and I think McKinnon returns. I think the reason the Chiefs wanted to wait until after the draft was just in case they did draft a running back, but they did not, so I do think McKinnon will be back. I think he'll be back into the fold, keep that 1-2 punch healthy that happened in the playoffs with Pacheco and McKinnon, make a decision on Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he wants to stay as kind of your 3rd back, 2nd back in terms of carrying the football. That's fine. If you want to try and trade or even cut him to let him start fresh, that is perfectly fine as well. Should Kansas City re-sign Jerick McKinnon? I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think it's a no-brainer. Bring McKinnon back to KC. Here's a bit of a curveball one. Ndamukong Suh, defensive tackle who signed midseason with the Philadelphia Eagles, did some good things on that defensive line toward the end of the year and into the playoffs. And look, if you want to add a little bit of nasty to this defensive line, Suh certainly provides that, right? I mean, at times in his career, he's certainly been labeled a dirty player, and I don't think that's necessarily out of bounds, but he brings experience, he brings production, he brings, I don't know if leadership's the right word, but a guy that can mentor some young players. I think on a vet minimum type of deal, a guy that can rotate in, Suh could be a guy that still has some value. Jadeveon Clowney could be another edge rusher if they want to have someone who can seal the edge in the run game. And Ngakoue doesn't provide a ton as a run stopper, but but Clowney does. That's one area he is really good at. His sack production wasn't great last year, but he was still good against the run. A couple of seasons ago, he was great at rushing the quarterback quarterback with 9 sacks, and he's always been a consistent run defender. He tends to, kind of bounce around the AFC. That's kind of where he's been. So maybe this year it's the Chiefs for Mr. Jadeveon Clowney. Speaking of edge rushers, if you want to get the Chiefs' first-round picks jersey, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, you could pre-order now. That's not going to be his number 1, but once the number is finalized and once jerseys get made, they will ship out to you. So if you want to rep the local kid here, chatsports.com/Felix. It is chatsports.com/Felix. Go ahead and get a Felix Anudike-Uzomah jersey right now. Link is in the description and comments of this video. How about Frank Clark? Listen, he's still out there. I know the Chiefs cut him, but what if his market stinks? What if he can't get decent money out there? Maybe you bring him back. Who knows? I wouldn't completely dismiss the idea. Now, he obviously would be taking hardly any money to come back because you don't cut him to clear up I think $21 million, but still eat $7 million of dead cap, and then go pay him like $8 million because the two sides couldn't come to a restructure. So it would have to be really cheap, and him just kind of come to terms with that a big contract isn't out there. But here's what we do know. He's great in the postseason, even though his regular season stats, like you can see now, are kind of middling, not bad, but certainly not what you paid for when you traded for him and paid him. But he knows this defense. At times, he was the heart and soul of this defense. Great playoff performer, which we've talked about before. Could a Clark reunion happen? The longer he's available, the more I think it's a possibility. Now, I'm not going to sit here on May 1st and say, yeah, I think Frank Clark's going to be back. He's, there's just nowhere else he could go. He definitely would have other suitors. But if there's not big money that stands out somewhere else for him, coming back for vet minimum or just over the vet minimum could be in store. 1-year deal. If he has a big year, then he could get paid elsewhere. Should the Chiefs sign Frank Clark? What do you think? Type S for sign or P for pass. Could a reunion happen between the two parties after a few months off? Weirder things have happened in sports. S for sign or P for pass. Stick with the defensive line here. How about Poona Ford? We talked about Suh earlier. Ford, kind of a lower to the ground type of guy, just a scrappy defensive tackle that can play some 1-tech, can play some 3-tech, and rotate, play both spots, and had a career high 3 sacks last year, so coming off one of the best years of his career, 6 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, always been pretty solid against the run as well. An overachiever in the NFL at 5'11", but a fun player, and I think someone who could rotate on this defensive line. I'll tell you what, if the Chiefs sign someone, we will break it down here on the channel. So hit that subscribe button, join the movement here on the Kansas City Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. Just because the draft is over doesn't mean our coverage starts. All you have to do is hit that sub button and turn on notifications. Keep it rolling here with Dalton Risner, also went to Kansas State, just like Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Still available in free agency. I think the best interior offensive lineman on the market, at least at that guard position. And you got the local flair there playing at K-State, like I said. You look at the offensive line, there's not a starting spot for him, so he would have to understand that coming in. But he would be your top guard backup. I mean, he could be your swing guard. That would give you some good depth there with Allegretti and Kennard. Kennard still has a lot to prove, so I think Risner would certainly unseat him on the depth chart. If he can't find a starting job somewhere, maybe coming here to be a backup could be a possibility. Also, a former Bronco, Cameron Fleming, who I think is the best offensive tackle, arguably, on the open market, can play both offensive tackle spots. And while you drafted Wanya Morris, he's still going to be a rookie. Lucas Niang hasn't played in a year and a half virtually. And obviously, you gave Jawan Taylor big money, but you're having him flip from right to left tackle. A bit of a question mark there. What if there's a scenario where he has to go back to right tackle and you don't have someone you feel comfortable at left? Cam Fleming could hold it down for a year. At worst, he's good depth. At best, or in a doomsday scenario, he could start for you and play at a decent level. I thought he played well last year in the NFL, so I think on a cheap contract to be a swing tackle and compete, I wouldn't mind that at all. Pick an offensive lineman to provide some depth. Who would you rather have? Type DR for Dalton Risner. Type CF for Cam Fleming. Drop an initial in the comments. Couple more here. Another reunion, perhaps. Justin Houston, who remains available in free agency, has spent his last couple of years with the Baltimore Ravens. Had a really nice resurgence last year, 9.5 sacks. Those 2 years in Indy in 2019 and 2020 after the Chiefs moved on from Houston. He was great, 19 sacks that year. He still knows how to rush the passer. You guys are familiar with Houston. I mean, his numbers in Kansas City for the first 8 years of his career were phenomenal. I mean, he averaged right at 10 sacks a season in his career, 96 tackles for loss as well. So he's been a guy that can certainly get after the quarterback. Darius Harris, a little under the radar. He's still out there. He's played a big role on special teams last couple years. And last year, he got to play more at linebacker than he has ever with the Chiefs. And I actually like how he played. I think, as like a fourth linebacker type. I know you brought in Drew Tranquil, and you have Leo Chenal, but he knows this defense. He's great on special teams. I think he could round out that linebacker room if the Chiefs wanted to go that route. Name a free agent that the Chiefs should sign. Drop his name on today's video, and let's hear from you. Who's a free agent target that you would like to see Kansas City go out and pursue? And we're going to be here throughout the rest of the offseason, so don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications. Got rookie minicamp coming up, OTAs, and then before you know it, it'll really ramp up. We'll have minicamps, we'll have training camp, and then the pursuit to defend a Lombardi trophy will be here. It's youtube.com/ChiefsTV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be your home for Chiefs content throughout the offseason.